Did you know that AI companies might be using a sneaky trick to avoid copyright laws? It means everything that you've ever written, photographed, or created is now fair game to be used by big tech. The technique is called copyright laundering. In this video, I'm going to reveal how synthetic data is being used to create a legal shield for AI models. By the end, you're going to understand why this technique could make or break the future of AI development, not to mention the creative process. I'm Evan Goldstein. I'm a licensed professional engineer and a data scientist. And I'm making the AI Capitalist channel to help creative individuals like yourself protect your rights. There's a lot of lawsuits being waged against companies working on AI models. Most of the drama is about copyright issues, and it's mainly creators claiming that tech companies are using copyrighted material without asking the creators' permission to train their AI. There are big-name lawsuits going on, like the New York Times versus OpenAI Universal Music Group versus Anthropic over song lyrics, and UMG Recordings suing Suno over other music copyright issues. There's a whole bevy of lawsuits. The internet really confused copyright laws by making it super easy to share content. Now, generative AI is throwing a wrench into how we create content, too. At the center of all this drama is the idea of fair use, which is like the criteria to decide if it's okay to use someone else's work without asking them first. One criteria that helps us decide if something counts as fair use is if the use is transformative. Basically, this means that you're using the original work in a fresh and unique way or giving your own spin or message on it. So if you put your own twist on it, there's a better chance that it'll be seen as fair use. And AI users can argue that even though these models rely on copyrighted material, the content they produce is unique enough to be considered transformative. However, determining what counts as plagiarism and what's transformative can be fuzzy. It's all about whether something is different enough. And honestly, that's up for grabs. Different judges might see things differently and come up with various conclusions. The issue boils down to how close your creation is to the original. The nearer you stick to this source, the more likely it is to resemble the source. To tackle the copyright mess, companies working on AI models might need a solid strategy to back themselves up. They want to be considered different enough, and there probably needs to be a good amount of distance or variation from the original work that they train their model on to the output. The answer comes from a synthesis of several new breakthroughs. The first big win happened back in June 2023 when the Microsoft research group, headed by Sebastian Bubeck, decided to whip up a code textbook using top-notch educational material to train Phi 1, which is a kind of a spiffier model for generating code. The model was trained with 3 sets of data. First was a clean code language dataset from Stack Overflow. The next was a textbook dataset with Python material created by GPT 3.5. The third part was a synthetic stash of Python exercises and their solutions. And it was so successful that it really showed how crucial top-notch data is for making language models better. What made the success of the Phi model stand out was the blend of content created by humans and some created by machines, synthetic data. Building on this idea of specialized models using synthetic data, there's also a breakthrough where bigger models help train smaller models. NVIDIA just released models designed just for synthetic data generation, or SDG. This uses a technique called knowledge distillation. It's where a smaller, more efficient model, the student model, learns to act like a bigger, more complex model, the teacher model. You're taking the smarts and skills from a powerful language model and passing them down to a smaller and easier to handle version. So why does this even matter? And how does this tie into copyright law? It looks like the fix could help with the proximity issue, because even when you give the original a makeover, you still might hover a little too close to it. But what if you shake things up by transforming the knockoff instead? This method is being called copyright laundering. It's actually pretty simple. Let's think back to the early 80s when computer chips were first being manufactured for basic consumer people like you and me. So Intel was the leader, and AMD, Advanced Micro Devices, was playing catch up. And the way they would copy a chip is they would take a Microsoft chip, look at all the ins and outs, and test every possible in and out. One engineer would take care of that, and then come up with a list of, for every input, what's the output of this chip. Then they would set that aside, they would send the engineer off to lunch, or wherever, and then they would bring in a new second person who was clean, and then that person would have to take all those inputs and outputs and design a new chip around that to have the same functionality as the Intel chip with none of the interior architecture. So for copyright laundering, you can teach a model using copyrighted material and then use it to create copyright-free synthetic data to train a new model. In the end, you've got yourself a clean new model. Now they're planning to retrain models using only synthetic data to help dodge copyright hassles and skip the whole licensing game. The catch is that synthetic data comes from models trained on copyrighted material without approval. So does using these student models as public-facing models to generate new content might dodge liability from copyright-trained teacher models? Honestly, I think it does. The synthetic data acts as a buffer between the original copyrighted material and the new model, hiding any direct connection or any fingerprint back to where the information came from. Now, there's still a connection to the original source, but proving legal infringement would be impossible. And if you think you're getting value from this content, I would appreciate it if you would hit the like button. Hitting like lets me know that I'm making content that you want to see, and it helps spread that content to others. And I thank you for your support. So, does synthetic data actually do the job when it comes to whipping up a fresh batch of content? And what's the deal with model collapse? Model collapse happens when a model is using synthetic data and it starts to lose touch with the variety and depth of the real human-made data that it originally started with. Instead of coming up with unique content, it ends up just churning out the same old incorrect results over and over. Thanks to knowledge distillation and quality data sets, model collapse might not be as big a deal as everyone thought. Even if we spot some signs of it, I'll bet that the engineers at OpenAI and Anthropic can fix it up quickly. Before you know it, using high-quality data sets with synthetic data is going to be the standard. Media companies, artists, and publishers will need to act fast by using top-notch synthetic data and some smart knowledge and distillation tricks. Strategies for these models are gearing up to dodge copyright claims completely